Welcome to On the Beat, where we bring you a different Buffalo Bills beat reporter every week, exclusively on the Overreaction Sports Network.
Welcome into another edition of On the Beat here on the Overreaction Buffalo Network, powered by Believe. I am the big O, Jerry Ostrowski. He's my partner, John Fina. I don't want to waste any time, man. We got royalty among us. Our good friend from Locked On Bills, Joe Marino, joins us this week on the Beat. And as always, folks, we appreciate you hit the like button, the subscribe button, hop over in the comments on YouTube, get in the show. But again, don't want to waste any time. Joe, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, gentlemen. Good to be on with you. Thank you for the kind words. I'm the one that's staring at 233 career NFL starts and have to talk to you guys about football. So that's not intimidating at all.
I'm still icing my legs. I'm still tired from all those snaps.
I don't have to ice them anymore because I have two total knees. So I just go, no more pain for me. But no, obviously, Buffalo Bills win this week against Tennessee. Real quick before we get into some pretty pointed questions with you, Joe, just what did you think about that Tennessee game in Orchard Park this weekend?
How fun was it to see the passing game come to life? Really kind of struggled in that first half for sure. That first 20 minutes, Bills down 10-0. They're punting left and right. They can't get stops. They can't get points off of a short field and a turnover. And all of a sudden, it started to click. And it gets me really excited about what this passing game can be moving forward now that there's like a top four, in my opinion, with the three receivers in Coleman, Cooper, and Shakir Kincaid getting them going down the field. I like the involvement of Ray Davis and what he can mean for this rushing offense to give it a physical element. And so as you think about this offense, and there's like a path forward for the passing game to get better and then the run game to get better as well with the inclusion of Ray Davis. This offensive line seems like it's gelling a little bit more every single week. So it was certainly exciting to see that, 34 unanswered points to close out a game over the last 40 minutes. They survived the double dip. I mean, the Tennessee was 10-7, had a chance to score at the end of the middle eight. The Bills managed the middle eight when the deck was stacked against them. I thought there was a lot of great things from that game if you can get past the first 20 minutes.
And the third down conversion ratio. Holy smokes.
Yeah, they stink at that, right? Even the whole season they're bad at third downs.
Well, let me ask you this, Joe, and obviously things have changed a little bit with the addition of Amari Cooper, but when you look at this Bills offensive identity, what do you feel Brady theory-wise and theoretically is trying to get done with what he's doing on game day? Obviously, again, it's changed a little bit with Amari, but looking at this Bills offense in depth like you do, what do you think his philosophies are? What is he trying to establish as the game begins?
Well, certainly there's a running element to this football team. They're running the ball at a pretty high clip, especially compared to maybe the Dayball years for sure. So they want to run the ball more than they have in the past. And I think they want to – the identity is Josh Allen, right? I mean, that's what it really comes down to. It's his ability to make decisions in the passing game and support him with a run game. And I think when you have a quarterback like Josh Allen, you're always going to get decent run looks in terms of your opportunities with lighter boxes. And so it's good to see some creative run scheme. I think that's one of my criticisms for Brian Daboll is I think he was just – his run schemes were, hey, the box counts are good, let's run the ball. And with Brady, and certainly with the influence of Aaron Kromer, you're seeing dynamic run schemes where it's a blended zone gap situation. They have wrinkles all the time. They use the athleticism of their tackles. And I looked at those offensive lines in the past, and I thought to myself, this is just a mixed match of skill sets. It doesn't really make sense to me with how they work together. I think this is more defined with your athleticism at tackle, your power on the inside, and they've really evolved their run scheme and getting bigger people involved on the edges as opposed to relying on these little receivers. So they want to be a physical running offense that is also relying on Josh Allen making good decisions with the football, throwing it.
You bring up good decisions. Do you see an evolution of Josh? Is he a better game manager, smarter with the ball, throwing it away, not forcing it into windows? And can they bring him to another stage where he can create some situations where he can audible from one run to another when the defense really isn't given the first call?
I think so. I think with Josh Allen and the decision making. Obviously, everyone's really excited that he hasn't thrown an interception. What's the only quarterback in the league with 40 attempts that hasn't thrown a pick? Collect your earnings if you had that for Josh Allen and going into week 8. So it's definitely better. It really is. And one of the fascinating elements for me, at least thinking about this offense before the season, what it could be is there a freedom that Josh Allen has to just operate differently without any level of regard for funneling 160 targets to Stephon Diggs? And then I think on top of that, I think what's lost in that conversation was this 3-year attempt to validate Gabe Davis as a true number 2 receiver when he's just not, right? He's a specialized skill set that is limited with the ways that he can attack a defense. And so I think once you rid yourself of, hey, you don't have to make sure that Stephon Diggs gets his, and also, hey, there's no pressure to make sure that you validate Gabe Davis and his status on this team. Just run the freaking play, and I think that Josh Allen's eyes are in the right places more consistently now than they were in the past. And so I think that has contributed a lot to the reduction in turnovers. And then, of course, a little bit of luck, right? What was the broadcast a couple of weeks ago with Troy Aikman, the Monday night game? Josh said to Troy Aikman, he's like, yeah, I've thrown a few picks. They just hadn't caught him, right? So you got to be on the right side of that sometimes, right? There's some interception luck that's involved that I think is normalizing, because last year he didn't deserve to throw as many interceptions as he did. There was some regression to the mean in terms of being unlucky last year, and I think being a little bit more fortunate, obviously, so far to start this year.
Joe, I got to ask this though, and sometimes I think some of the slow starts are, you can attribute to a lot of things. This week you can look at maybe the big Monday night game, human nature. You come back on a short week, it's tough to get up, because then you watch the first half and then the way they came out of the locker room the second half, 2 totally different teams. And I don't mean just scheme wise, because unlike a lot of people, I don't think you go into the locker room and make all these 10, 15 adjustments.
Right.
I think it's one thing that's kind of overblown a little bit. But you look at this team, they come out with a different energy. I mean, just totally different energy, and obviously you take over the second half. But with the slow starts and different things, I truly believe Josh Allen's a quarterback that thrives in chaos a little bit. He likes chaos. I mean, we see the plays he makes. How do you feel he has embraced this Joe Brady offense with the short passes and really not many intermediates? Now, obviously, it'll change a little bit maybe with Amari Cooper, but just this controlled passing game, get the ball out of his hands quick, kind of leading to that what McDermott just preaches, complementary football, never put the defense in a bad spot if you can't. How do you think he's really embraced this? Because sometimes I think he has a little bit of a hard time doing it.
Yeah, I think he learned some very hard lessons against Houston and Baltimore, where he got away from what this offense is supposed to be, which is take your profits, and the big plays will be there when they're supposed to be there. You don't have to force them. You don't have to hunt the big plays. And against Houston and Baltimore in particular, just out of nowhere, the Bills became this vertical passing offense. The percentages of deep throws were just far too frequent, and then you just didn't have any chemistry, right? I mean, throws down the field are low percentage for the best teams that are good at throwing the ball down the field, much less, you're trying to get the ball to MVS and Mac Hollins and even Keon Coleman, guys that just you don't have rapport with to be able to do that. And so I think he learned hard lessons in those 2 games. And you kind of look at both of them and you say, okay, Houston, Stephon Diggs, time for me to show the world, right, that I can do this without Steph. Okay, Sunday night against Lamar Jackson, the guy that, probably in Josh Allen's mind didn't deserve to be the MVP last year. You could tell he was hunting it a little bit. And I think he learned some hard lessons and got back to it against the Jets in Tennessee to be efficient with the ball and take those profits. And when Josh can keep it on schedule and sprinkle in the cool Superman stuff when it's appropriate, that's when the offense is at its best. So I think that's what it's supposed to be. And I think that Josh learned some hard lessons there against Houston and Baltimore.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I love that. I mean, more or less, be a game manager, keep your ego in check a little bit. But again, go to the bank and make deposits when they give them to you. It's exactly how, I think we should really approach it. I want to flip over to one of Jerry's questions. I'll get to the other side of the ball. Do you see an issue with, and why do we have a problem stopping some impact runs from the other team? What's going on defense? What do you see?
The Bills I think the Bills invite runs with how they play defense.
I agree.
I mean, Jerry, that's what they want. They want you to
Yes.
run the ball. They don't stack the box for anybody.
Right.
0%. They're giving you 6-man boxes all season long. And so, like, literally, I'm not being hyperbolic, like, literally the highest percentage of light boxes, which is 6 or fewer, and the lowest percentage of heavy boxes, 8 or more. So they're inviting the run. And within that, everybody's got to be right with their run fit, right? There's no margin for error. You can get creased very, very quickly.
We saw it happen.
I mean, against Tennessee, Austin Johnson doesn't step laterally with the zone run. It's one guy. The other players exactly where it's supposed to be. One guy doesn't step the right way, and you're creased. So the Bills, their defense structurally is set up to take away explosive plays down the field, and then within that, they want to get some negative plays, right? They're going to be up the field with their D-line. And so they're not engineered to be a good run defense. And it's been like it's an 8-year conversation. Let's call it what it is. It's an 8-year conversation under Sean McDermott, because I don't think people have accepted that they are inviting runs. They want you to run the ball, and they feel like, okay, here's your yards. You can have them. And when it comes down to being in the condensed areas of the field inside the red zone, we'll tighten the screws. We'll limit your points. And if you're going to score, it's because you're going to string play after play after play after play against us. And we don't think that you're going to do that. We think that eventually 8, 9, 10, 11 plays into this thing, you're going to screw up. You're going to get behind the sticks, and you won't be in position to be able to get out of it. That's what this defense is built on. And it can be frustrating. And every once in a while, it blows up in their face against Baltimore, against the Colts in the regular season a few years ago, against the Browns in the regular season a few years ago, that Philly game, right? It happens. But this is, I mean, more times than not, overwhelming more times than not, it works, but there are those moments. And here's what it comes down to. When it doesn't work, the piece of the pie that doesn't come together is they don't score points. That's what the best thing for the Bills' run defense is, their ability to score points on offense. And when that piece is not working, okay, here it is. Here's a big game for whatever back.
Right, and we can sustain some drives as long as they're 80-yard drives, and we're not turning the ball over, and these drives are 20 and 30 yards going into the complementary football deal. But also, too, I think some of it's schematics, but also I think there's a little bit of a personnel thing going on, because I understand why, but we don't defend the flat or D gap very well at all either. Right. And you got to look at, what is this defense doing? It's trying to make big plays, but it funnels what? It funnels everything out there. Yeah. And you've got safeties from 30 yards trying to come downhill. Now, I wish we'd play some games with our corners, because both of our corners tackle really, really well in the running game, but still we're deficient in the safety room, but yet this defense puts a ton of pressure on the safety position.
Yeah, that's what teams are doing. They're coming out and they want to make it a space game against Buffalo and say, hey, we don't think that you're a very good tackling defense. You've heard Bill Belichick say it out loud. They don't think the Bills tackle well. And within that, it's okay, when we can make it a space game against you, we're going to challenge not only your ability to tackle, your ability to get off blocks, and your ability to take consistently good angles. And again, if one person's wrong, it's an issue. And there's times, like you're mentioning, they're funneling things to certain areas of the field, and then too many players become the force player. And someone's got to make the tackle, right? And I think quick game and perimeter screens and like some of the recognition stuff is very poor. But ultimately, in terms of just simplifying it, teams are making it a space game against the Bills. And like the Bills, you look at the numbers, their EPA, their yards after catch on short throws, 10 or less air yards, it's like one of the worst in the league. So yeah, this is definitely a thing. And you saw it was killing the Bills against Tennessee with those early scripted plays. And what did Bobby Babich do? He said, okay, we're going to play man. We're going to blitz a little bit. Right. And eventually they were able to get things figured out.
Right, because the same thing happens up front. It is such a penetrating type defensive line, and you're playing gaps and edges as opposed to eating up guys. And let's face facts, we've got really athletic linebackers. They're not very big. Right. Anytime you don't have to necessarily even get them clean, you get a hand on them or whatever to slow them down, it's hard to get to those areas.
I guess my comment to that's a good call, Jerry. My comment to that is, why doesn't Babich put that mask on earlier? Why do we wait? It's just because that's our DNA, and we're just going to wait until we feel like, okay, our hand is pressed. Now we have to change something up, because I believe, and I see it, when we bring pressure, we do a pretty fair job of it. When we bring linebackers, we do a good job. Why wait, Joe?
This is the best answer I can give you, and you can tell me I'm crazy. I know that a big part of scripted plays is they want to get your tells. They want to see what you're going to do, how you're going to respond to certain packages.
Great point.
And Bobby's like, I'm not giving it to you right now. And if you get a few points early on, we'll score points. We'll be okay. I think that's what it comes down to. If you guys see the numbers, the Bills have given up 96 points in the first half this year, 33 in the second, combined in 7 games. It's insane. They've held every one of the opponents to 7 or less in the second half, except for Baltimore. It's got 14. They held 4 teams under 3 points in 7 games in the second half. So I think Bobby's saying, I'm not giving you the tells. I know what you're doing. You want these tells. I'm not giving them to you.
I think Brady's doing the same thing on the other side of the ball, too. It's pretty vanilla in the first 2 or 3 drives. We're just lining up in formations and checking how they're playing it. And it's painful as a fan, as a player, and the chess game makes sense. But but when you get behind and then all of a sudden, now it's a grab bag of what can we do to catch up, then it just looks a little panicky.
How does that make you guys feel like as players? Like, I mean, I'd love to ask you a question here. When you see everybody in the world, the reaction on social media is nuts, right? The Bills are out coached. They don't know how to start games. They can't get this team up. Like, no, I think there's some, like, I'm not trying to find excuses. I think there's like some strategy to this.
Yes. I think there's a couple of phrases that drive me crazy. One is we're getting out coached, 6 minutes into the game. The other one is there it is again.
Right.
Every damn run is right up the middle.
Yeah.
Right.
No, they're not. It's not the same run every time up the middle. And like John stated the other day, technically, folks, it's between the tackles, not up the middle. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that. And I think you're right. And again, and I hate to keep bringing this damn term up, but he brings it up so much in Sean McDermott. This is what he wants. This complimentary football, man. He doesn't want to put themselves in harm's way. And yes, you have to be patient if you're a Bills fan with this coaching staff, because that's how they coach.
Wouldn't you rather be on that side of it? Wouldn't you rather be able to play the last 75% of the game with great information and great execution, as opposed to congrats on being right for the first 25%? I want to be on the other side of the equation. Now, you'd love to be true for both. Nobody is. It's a National Football League. Nobody gets it right 100% of the game.
Joe, I want to bring this up because Joe Miller, our good friend Joe Miller, he put a super chat up for it.
Thank you for the super chat, Joe.
And basically, this is
one pocket to the other there, Joe Miller.
This is Joe's. He's admitting that, you talk about that group that wants to blame coaching. I mean, I'm not going to say too much, but anyway, his question is: should the Bills fans expect a touchdown every offensive possession? Of
course. I mean, why else? What else are the players doing on the field other than to score a touchdown?
And yes, they should, and the players do also. That's the damn goal.
But the secret of it is you ask anybody. I have a good friend who's I played in college with, was an offense coordinator and now is a head coach at a local high school. He'll tell you every play I draw up is for a touchdown. Every play I call should score.
I didn't play football like you guys did, but in high school I was a right tackle, and whenever we broke the huddle, and our offensive coordinator said it, every play that we have is designed to score. So when we broke the huddle, 1, 2, 3, score. Right, that's what we said. That's what we wanted to do. And I was tongue in cheek, obviously, in responding to Joe Miller. But I mean, there is that mindset that does exist.
Yeah, I mean, the honest answer to Joe's question is yes. I mean, we all expect to score. Now, there's such situations that make it harder, right? You're coming off your -2. That's a pretty rough place to say, yeah, we're going 98. I don't know what the stats are, but they're probably not very good on the touchdown rate starting from your own 2. But yeah, definitely. I mean, and that's what being a fan is all about, right? Get excited, want to see your team succeed, want to see those incredible plays down the field. That I expect that. I'm a little bit more of a realist by experience, and I realize
John said it best the other day. We're kind of cursed. We're wearing 2 hats, right? So we're on the one side of it, and we've been on the other side of it. So we know what it's like. So it's kind of a curse to be on, to understand both areas or both aspects of this conversation.
Well, we're lucky to have you guys.
I mean, so you know what I say all the time, Joe and Jerry, it is hard as hell to win a football game. And I don't care how bad the other team is. It is just damn hard to win a game. I don't care if the score ended up being 34-10. It's a hard game. All 4 quarters are hard until that last series where it's victory formation. It's hard to win a football game.
All right, Joe, I got to ask you, we kind of had some conversations in the offseason. We talked about some things revolving around the center position and the movement of Connor McGovern from left guard to center. I want to talk a little bit about how you feel that's going. And then also, John and I, obviously offensive linemen, we talk offensive line a lot. Kind of your assessment of this group up front and just how they're playing so far this season.
I think there was definitely growing pains earlier with the communication of the middle three. I felt like they just, a lot of times they were, whether it was timing in the run game and, some of the zone stuff and being able to pass off and get to landmarks, or in pass pro kind of being stressed with some pressure looks and really challenging the communication. I thought they had some issues that they've, I think, have gotten better every single week. So I definitely think that transition was something that took a little time. I find myself pretty satisfied with how it's coming together, because I think it's gotten incrementally better each week. And I think even like Osiris Torrance really stands out to me as a player that I think has gotten better every single week, kind of getting back to some fundamentals with his technique, but also his communication, I think, has really ramped up. I think that the Bills' offensive line is one of the better units in the league. I like the makeup of it. I love how they use the athleticism that they have at tackle in unique ways that you don't really see that often in the NFL. And of course, that athleticism, you need power in the middle to be able to anchor and turn out guys and be able to sustain blocks long enough for some of these poles to develop and for backs to kind of get through. And I think it comes together pretty well. And the reality here, though, is if you look metrically at the pressure rates for the Bills, they give up a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I think people say they're giving up a lot of pressure. It's automatically, well, offensive linemen are losing one-on-one. I don't really see that very often. Where I see issues is when teams want to sim pressure or overload. It's not like I don't feel like the Bills get to their answers or haven't gotten to their answers quickly enough. And I think they put a lot on Josh to kind of deal with free runners. And earlier in the season, I think through the first 3 games, the Bills almost exclusively used 5-man protections. And it was like, Josh, figure it out. And he kind of did at times. And then they started to involve the backs a little bit more, involve the tight ends a little bit more, Alec Anderson a little bit more as that utility blocker. So I think they're kind of still evolving their protection schemes a little bit, and shoring that up is going to be important, because I'm surprised actually how much blitz and pressure looks a quarterback like Josh Allen actually gets. Now, he's metrically very good under pressure, but maybe you wish he was under pressure a little less.
We are all about 5-man protection. That's good stuff, though. I love it.
But it also seems like, I think defenses, and I think Tennessee did a little bit this week, and going along the lines of what Baltimore did, they've been really cognizant of taking away the right side of the field.
Yes.
Houston, and then Tennessee, taking away the right side of the field from him. You see the rushers that are going for his outside shoulder. You see him. I mean, everything they're doing is to keep him from escaping. And if he's going to escape, he's going to have to go up the middle through B gaps or whatever. He's not going to get out that right side for a lot of these teams.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. I think you have seen teams do as good of a job as ever not allowing Josh to get outside to his right. And I think a lot about, I'm sure you saw the Belichick clip with the Mannings.
Yes.
And the Ray Davis completion against the Jets, where both Mannings are like, throw it away. And Belichick's like, you better keep him in the pocket. And then, of course, Josh Allen gets 3 inches away from the sideline and launches one to Ray Davis, and he does the thing he does. But, yeah, I think that where teams are doing as good of a job as they ever have is that right there, is not letting him get out to his right.
We got another super chat from Koala Bear Khan. He says, he got a question for Joe. He says, this should even out for Joe's question. He said, quick question. What's the best way to defend quick passes on defense, improve the tackling, or being better prepared?
Probably more alignment stuff, being willing to play man coverage,
right?
Which they have ramped up a little bit. And man, they were playing man on like third downs and pressuring. It just was not working at times earlier in the year. So I think mixing in their man coverage has, certainly against Tennessee at least, it evolved a little bit there. So I think, you got to be willing to play tighter, and I think you have to be willing to play a little bit more man to not allow zones to get flooded and playing from off and relying on click and close so often.
And the Part two of that answer is nobody's doing tackling drills at this time of the year. So whatever capacity you have to tackle right now is what you're carrying through the rest of the year. They're not hitting bags and they're not tackling live.
Joe Marino from Locked On Bills joins us here on the Beat on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, powered by Believe. A couple more questions for you, Joe, and then at the end, we want you to let everybody know where they can find you and all that good stuff, so they can catch your great content that you put out daily on Locked On Bills. And I have to ask this question. When you look at this team, and obviously they had Amari Cooper, but I know you're a big draft guy, and I don't want to get into specific players because you're not, you're just preparing for this upcoming draft and studying the individual players. When you look at this team just right now, the way they are, what would you say the top three areas that they're going to try to attack are, in the draft? Who's the first guy? What's the first position you're trying to find? Second, third? Where do you see this team or Brandon Beane going in the draft to try to get this team better for the upcoming years?
Certainly a lot of that's going to be reliant on who they keep in free agency, right? I mean, if Cooper walks,
assuming they all come back.
Okay, everyone's back.
Yeah, everyone's back.
What do you want to do?
I think the most upgradable spots on this team are defensive line, safety, probably interior offensive line. I think those would be your three spots, and assuming everyone's back, that's where I would say those are your upgradable areas. I think Damar Hamlin's a good backup. I don't have the disdain for him as a lot of Bills fans do. I think that maybe he's a little unfairly criticized, and certainly not. I don't think he's a good starter. I think he's a good depth player, and he's playing a ton of football. But he's certainly upgradable. I think you can get a lot more production there, and a lot more impact instead of just kind of being where you're supposed to be. You're not really going to make any plays. The ball will find you a couple times, right? Let's be honest about both picks, right? The ball found him. So I think that's upgradable. I think the interior defensive line in particular, I think Jones and Oliver are good players, and Carter looks like he's coming along okay, but I've been pretty disappointed with Austin Johnson. I'd love to see a little bit more depth behind those guys. And then interior offensive line, I think just looking at a guy like David Edwards, I think he's a sufficient starter, but when you talk about upgradable starters, I think he's certainly a possibility there. He'll be a contract year for him in 2025. And so maybe setting yourself up with a young player that you think has some upside to develop and, be a cost control rookie starter in 2026, 7, and 8, and then you'll see if you can pay him or not.
Joe, we got another question on the super chat real quick. Man, you're a fan favorite, dude. They got all kinds of questions for you. Says, hello from Alaska. This is Sonny Lamont. Hello from Alaska. Go Bills. Should we trade for a safety? I feel we need a proven safety. Your thoughts?
I really like Mike Edwards. I know that's
okay, great.
Yeah.
Why is he inactive?
Sean's answered this question the same way every time. This is what he says. He said, we thought he would be a starter, and during OTAs, we planned on giving him all the starter reps. Well, he wasn't healthy with the shoulder injury, so that gave the opportunity for Damar Hamlin to get those reps, and we liked what he did. And then we get to camp, and it was supposed to be a three-way battle between Hamlin, Bishop, and Edwards, and Edwards has a hamstring deal and misses pretty much all of camp, and for whatever reason, they don't trust him, right? Like, that obviously. Like, Bishop is ahead of him. Bishop was a disaster in that start against Houston.
Yes.
So, like, for it to be that deep, where that guy gets a jersey and a start over him, says something to you. I mean, I'm well acquainted with Mike Edwards from Kentucky to Tampa to Kansas City. I've watched a lot of his film. He's a good football player. I don't know what it is, but obviously they don't trust him. And here's the thing: I know this is the most boring response in the world. If there's anything that I trust Sean McDermott on, it's defensive backs. The resume is off the charts. It has been for his entire career. Like, he just seems to always get it right. And so I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but I feel like Mike Edwards is just a better, more impactful player for this team as a tackler, versatility. He's got the ball. I mean, you're talking about ball skills. Mike Edwards got him. So
why not?
I don't know what it is, man.
Maybe we're saving him for the run into the playoffs. Maybe you should get him reps with the defense so that they ask these guys to play with vision, right? I mean, it's a vision defense, and reps matter, and he's not getting them.
Maybe Bobby Babbage Jr. saving him for later so nobody makes adjustments when Mike Edwards gets in.
I think That's the extremity of it, right? Yeah. No, nobody will know what to do. I'm like, hey, can you call Micah Hyde at some point?
No, I think it's a great question because obviously we've been spoiled with just great, solid safety play for a long time and a defense that puts so much emphasis on safety. So, obviously we're in a time where we're in the state of flux, and it's mind-boggling to me. I mean, the guy's been in the league a long time. How much practice does he need, Joe?
I don't. It's very. It's confusing to me. I mean, and you say like how much practice? Like I don't know, man. It's friggin' safety. It's split zone, one high, quarters. Like what are we gonna do? Like you gotta get this is the percentage of the field you're responsible for. Be there. I don't know. Like I mean, certainly playing with the other players, and I think you saw a communication blunder with Rasul Douglas and Cole Bishop on the Nico Collins touchdown against Houston, right? I think there's an example of where reps would matter, but that's also a rookie, man. And Bishop was best as a low safety at Utah. I never thought he was a very good deep zone defender. So I don't know, man. I never played safety. I'm sure the reps matter. It seems pretty straightforward, but again, I don't think DeMar Hamlin's the world's worst football player. I think he's a fine depth player, but I don't know. I feel like that's also an area where if you can get more of an assertive player to fill from depth and come downhill and trigger, and they blitzed him a good amount against Tennessee, I feel like there's just better options.
You got anything, John?
Yeah, well, I think we're close to wrapping it up here. Again, everybody, make sure you go to Locked On Bills and listen to the Joe Marino. He's kind enough to join us, and that means we get to have him back. He didn't agree, but we're gonna. And it's the Overreaction Buff Podcast, powered by Believe. Last question, Joe, and then we'll let you get back to your beautiful family. Big travel week, out to the Pacific Northwest, the Seahawks. What do they got to do to win? How do you see this game going?
Man, Seattle's one of the most confusing teams in the NFL to me. Talented football team. There's no question. They really like their prototype. So everyone's got long arms and great speed and athleticism and are physical specimens. And like, they have a really nice collection of talent. If you told me they won and beat any team in the NFL, I'd believe you. If you told me they lost any team in the NFL, I believe you. I think there's an example. They went to Atlanta, smoked the Falcons. They lost the friggin' Giants in Seattle a couple weeks ago. I don't know what this team is. It's confusing to me. But they're potent. I mean, Geno's got a lot of receivers. I don't know if DK is going to be available this week. That'll be helpful for the Bills if he can't go. But their commitment to the run game is not very good. But when they do run the ball, it's effective. So I'm worried about that. And then defensively, McDonald, he loves the sim pressure. Like that's his thing. Sim pressure, sim pressure, sim pressure. That's given the Bills a lot of issues. Plus you're on the road, hostile environment, right? I kind of saw that a little bit with Baltimore. So I got concerns about this game for sure. Bills have the capacity to do it, but it's a unique challenge. And part of what makes this game a little unsettling, the Bills are actually favored in this game right now. They're 3-point road favorites right now.
Shocking.
Which is a little surprising to me. I think the variance of Seattle and a very young coaching staff, like even their offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb, like basically no NFL experience, kind of coming over from Washington is like what he did with Penix and all those guys. So I think there's some, you may be able to out experience them a little bit, but I don't know, man. They got some physical talent that I think matches up well with pretty much anybody. It's just a matter of how they're going to execute.
Right, and you got McDonald, the head coach, where was he last year? He was at
Baltimore.
DC at Baltimore. Yeah. So obviously there's that as well. I mean, I think this is a really tough game for the Bills. They're going to have to be on point. It'll be interesting to me to see just how much they continue to infuse Amari Cooper in this offense, and we'll see what happens. But Joe, real quick before we get out of here, let everybody know where they can find you and all the particulars.
I appreciate it, gentlemen. Enjoyed chatting with you guys on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it, at the Joe Marino. Locked On Bills is the daily podcast that I host. I also have another podcast that's on the entire NFL, Locked On NFL Scouting. So all kinds of podcasts coming your way on a daily basis. So thanks for allowing me to come on here. You guys are a treat to talk to all the time, and it's still not normal to me that you guys are players that I watched growing up, that I'm talking to you about football right now, and I could send you a text message and you'll answer my question. So appreciate what you guys are for this community and to me as a friends.
No problem.
It's our pleasure, buddy. Good to see you. Jerry, you want to take us out?
Yeah, you've been listening to the On the Beat show. It's Tuesday nights, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, right here on Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network. I am the Big O, Jerry Ostrowski. He is John Fina. Thanks once again to our guest from Locked On Bills, Joe Marino. And as always, folks, much love and go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.